guys? I am Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Classics Rebel Leader He-Man, or essentially our 1987 motion picture Dolph Lundgren He-Man. Another figure that I just didn't think we would ever see in the Masters of the Universe Classics line, and yet here it is. One of 4 figures that's part of Super7's William Stout Collection, which are all based on that original 87 motion picture. And it's pretty amazing. Here we are, all these years later. This line started back in 2008. It's 2020. We've got this figure presented in the standard Masters of the Universe Classics blister card packaging with the same gray skull green brick design. This one, however, we got a bit of a wonky thing going on with the package. The logo here totally covers He-Man's head. I mean, if we look at it straight on, look at that. It just totally hides his face. You have to like really lean this up to be able to see He-Man's face under there. And we've seen that before. We've had a few figures in the past where it's done that. Some of the taller figures are just the way they're positioned. But, after all these years, still using the same packaging for these figures. And this could be one of 4 figures that are the final times we will be seeing action figures in the Classics packaging, which is pretty crazy stuff. When we flip this around to the backside, we are treated to some brand new, very cool artwork by artist Axel Jimenez of the motion picture style He-Man. We've got our cross sell with the other movie figures from Super 7, as well as those final 4 Club Grayskull Filmation figures. And we even have a brand new bio at the bottom for our Rebel Leader He-Man. So why don't we go ahead and rip this packaging open and get a closer look at the figure within. I have the power! Oh my goodness, I can't believe I've got a Dolph Lundgren He-Man here in front of me. Let's get right in and check out the details on this guy. I've got the tape measure in here to start things off. You can see that this is a pretty tall figure. He is over the 7-inch mark, and it might just be because of his very, very feathered hair there. But he definitely stands a bit taller than some of the other figures. He's a bit taller than Skeletor, but I am totally cool with that because this is the most powerful man in the universe after all. And the details on this guy, what can I say, man? The 4 Horsemen really went all out on these final figures. We already took a look at Skeletor, so if you haven't already seen my review on that, make sure you check that out. Because the amount of intricacies they worked in to the detailed sculpting on this guy is right on par with what they did with Skeletor. All of the details in the armor are really amazing. That's one thing that He-Man had going for him. It was a little bit different in the film, of course, as opposed to like the toys or the cartoon. The armor that he was wearing actually is a lot more intricate in detail. So it's not, just a simple harness. You can't just reuse parts from existing figures, and it's definitely why we didn't get a version of He-Man like this in the vintage toy line. So these new figures here are based on the concept designs for the movie by William Stout, which is what's going on here, but we definitely have some actor likeness going on here too, because this, my friends, is absolutely a Dolph Lundgren head sculpt, and it looks pretty fantastic. I mean, I'm looking at this figure and he looks like He-Man did in the movie, and I think he's pretty great. Now, this He-Man does come with an alternate head, so looking at them side by side, you can see they're similar. The sculpt of the hair actually seems to be the same on both of them, but the faces are different. I think the alternate head here is maybe supposed to be a little bit more of a toyetic He-Man, or maybe a concept art He-Man. I'm not entirely sure, but the one that's on the figure is absolutely our Dolph head, and this one is just an alternate head, I guess, in case you don't want Dolph's head. I don't really know. But you can pop that off the ball joint. It's very simple to do. It works just like it always has in Masters of the Universe Classics for most of the figures there, and you can easily just pop the alternate head right on in its place, and it's fine, I guess. I definitely don't like it as much as the Dolph head, so that's the way that I will be displaying him there. Let's go and take a look at some of the other details there of the armor, because my goodness, it is absolutely amazing. If you look at these shoulder pads here, and the chest harness, I mean, it looks like it's leather straps with kind of like this bronze-like armor sitting over his shoulders. It's got a beautiful wash to it, so it's like slightly shiny, but the wash makes it look a little dingy, a little battle-worn, really brings out all of the awesome intricacies of the detailed sculpts there. You can see it there as far in the chest emblem as well. And of course, this continues all the way down with the big belt strap there. You got the buckle. Of course, this He-Man was not wearing furry underwear, but rather leather-like briefs. So that's what we've got going on there. You'll see he's got the bare right wrist, but the left wrist has kind of like the wrist gauntlet on there, which is very cool. We've got a nicely detailed holster on his left hip there for his laser pistol. We've got a little sheath on the right for his dagger, coming down to the amazing boots that cover his knees. I mean, again, beautiful details on the sculpts. I love this because on the right, we've got this small little dagger that fits right there in the boot, which is also awesome because it's kind of a neat nod to vintage He-Man and the little dagger he was supposed to have. That's pretty cool stuff. I mean, as you can see, this figure pretty much through and through, while the body looks very much like any of your other Masters of the Universe Classics figures, it is very different, and there's a lot of new stuff going on here. I mean, look at these are sculpted bands on his biceps. It is absolutely amazing. And of course, one of the other things we can't forget to mention, his bright red cape, which is a cloth cape. Now, that's something we didn't see very often in the Classics lineup. Usually the capes are sculpted and kind of that more pliable plastic, but they decided to go with a cloth cape here, and I like it fine. It probably would work either way. Honestly, it's not like the fabric is kind of your standard action figure cape, so it's not weighted or anything like that. It looks fine though. It's a little clean cut and straight, but it does look fine. You can see the way that they kind of has this like fold here on the back. It is attached permanently to the inside of the shoulder harnesses there, so it cannot be removed. As a matter of fact, it does not appear that any of his armor can come off, which has kind of been par for the course with a lot of the Super 7 made Classics figures. He does not appear to have removable armor. So no recreating the no armored scenes in Skeletor's throne room, unfortunately. But overall, he is an absolutely amazing looking figure. You might have also noticed while I was looking at the cape on the back, we do have a sheath here that holds onto his power sword. So while we're here, let me go ahead and show you how that works. You can actually, that little hole in the back of his cape, you can slide the sword through, and you'll see that it kind of slides into this little slot on the bottom, and then you've got this little holster here on the top that clips right over the handle. So now we've got He-Man's power sword right there on his back. In fact, He-Man can holster every weapon that he comes with. I already showed you the little knife there on his boot. He also has his blaster, which is a weapon he used quite a bit in the film. You can see his left hand is molded with a trigger finger to hold on to this blaster. Now, while he holds it, it's a bit of a loose grip. I definitely wish he was gripping a little bit tighter so he got a better grip on the blaster, but thankfully with the trigger finger there, he does hold on to it, but you can see it's a little loose, so that should be a tighter grip for sure. He also has this dagger I showed you briefly over on the side. I love how this dagger looks like a miniature version of like his original power sword from like the classic toy line. I'm not sure if that's accurate to the prop in the movie or not, I'll be perfectly honest, but I love it. I think that is really cool. Now, the only problem is it's tiny. The handle's tiny. He doesn't really get a good grip in it in any of his hands, so you can see it's very loose. And that little dagger in his boot, well, that's even worse. That's got even a smaller handle, so look at that. He really doesn't hold on to that at all. So I like that he's got all these extra accessories. I'm glad he's got somewhere to store all of them. He doesn't hold on to any of them very good, except for that power sword. And of course, really great power sword. This is the movie version of it, which is very different from what we saw in the original toy line and the cartoon series. But again, it's painted really nicely, has a nice shiny silver on the blade. His right hand is in a perfect grip, which you can see is a nice tight grip on the handle for the power sword. So pretty cool stuff there. Now, getting him to do the I have the power pose isn't perfect with this guy. He can't really look upwards. The wrist doesn't really pivot side to side, but rather in and out. But you can kind of get it. It's pretty much the same as what we've always been able to do with most of our He-Man figures in this line. So since we're on the articulation discussion, let's go ahead and do that. Let me show you how this guy articulates. It's pretty much what you would expect for a Classics figure at this point. That head, as I showed you, is ball jointed, can look left and right, up and down pretty good. You see the hair doesn't really hinder that whatsoever. You can see the shoulders can go outwards, forwards and backwards. Shoulder armor is loose enough, does not get in the way. Swivels at the bicep, single joint at the elbow, swivels at the wrist, hinges at the wrist. You got the ab crunch, you got the waist swivel, you got the nice hinge-like balls there at the thighs. Legs can go outwards, forwards and backwards. They can swivel. You can bend the knee in a single joint. You can also move the ankles forwards and backwards, as well as rock them side to side. There is no boot swivel, probably because of the sculpt of the shin, but otherwise, he is on par with what you would expect from a Masters of the Universe Classics action figure, and all of the articulation is nice and tight, and the plastic looks really good on this guy. You'll notice that, like I mentioned with Skeletor, it's not overly glossy like we've seen some of the figures from Super 7. So it really does feel like with these last couple figures, they got it really nailed down. They've got it all figured out, which is kind of a shame that this is like the last run of Classics figures. But man, I am so glad they've turned out as good as they have, because this is just a really fun action figure. Okay, guys, it's comparison time. Why don't we go ahead and show this 87 movie version of He-Man alongside two other iconic He-Man action figures, being the Club Grayskull Filmation style He-Man based on the original cartoon series, and that original 2008 He-Man action figure that basically kicked off this toy line 12 years ago, which is absolutely amazing to see how far we've come. And this right here is a wonderful representation of why this toy line was so great, because we got all of these amazing versions of these iconic characters. Matching your movie He-Man up with the previously released Gwildor is a ton of fun, especially with that cosmic key that came with the new Skeletor. So it's pretty great putting him there, matching him up with some of the bad guys from the movie, and of course facing off with Skeletor for that final battle. So good. So good. Guys, I can't gush about this enough. Like, I am really thrilled with this. And while I did have some nitpicks specifically with the grips of his hands, and maybe the cape could be a little bit cooler, all in all, I am really happy with this, and I can't even hide it. I think it's just such a thrill that we finally have this movie He-Man figure in our collections, and I think they did an amazing job on this guy. So, Super 7 sold these last 4 William Stout Collection figures by pre-order through their website. At this point, you will have to find them online at an online retailer that still has them in stock. I know places like BigBadToyStore.com are currently selling them, so if you're a fan of the movie, you don't want to miss out on these. Hey guys, thank you so very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, leave me a comment down below. And remember, we don't say goodbye, we say good journey.